Okay guys, so this is this short video. It's going to be short because I'm only going to show you guys a few examples. Is to show you guys how to write the equation of a polynomial function from the graph. So you look at the graph and you should be able to come up with the correct function for it. So these are the steps that we're going to follow, but I'm not going to talk about them until after I do my first example, and then the steps will make a little bit more sense. Okay, we're also going to talk about how to write the end behavior correctly, which we kind of discussed already in class. But I want to show you guys today for sure how to write correctly up, down, 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 and so on. The 4 different types of end behaviors that we have, how to write it correctly algebraically. Okay, so let's get started with number 1, how to write the equation of this graph. I noticed that I already got it started. And I underlined right here where it says assume the constant factor a is either 1 or -1. That's the first thing you should do. Okay, figure out if a is +1 or -1. Right now, those are your only 2 options. You don't have other options. The only 2 options are a is either 1 or -1. And to tell which one it is, you look at the graph, look at the end behavior on the right side. So for example, this one is up, down, right? The end behavior is up, down. So since the end behavior is up, down, on the right side, it's going down. And that's what we care about when it comes to a. Remember, I kept saying a basically determines the right side. So if a is negative, if the graph is going down, that must mean that a is negative. If the graph was going up on the right side, then a would be positive. So it's a is -1. That's the only one that makes sense. And so I've circled it and highlighted to remind myself that I need to include it there in my answer at the end. The next thing you do is to find the x-intercepts. And that means the graph either crosses or is tangent at those points. So find every single point where the graph crosses or is tangent to the x-axis. I found these 3 already, which is -3, -1, and +2. Before I continue writing the equation, the next thing I determine is, does the graph cross or is tangent at each one of those? So for example, at this one, I can easily see that it crosses. This one also crosses. And this one also crosses. It crosses all of them. And why does that matter? Because it determines what the exponent of each of these factors is going to be. Remember I said that if the exponent of the factor is even, then the graph is tangent, like this one over here. But if the exponent of the factor is odd, then the graph will cross, which tells me that all 3 of these, the exponent is odd, and when it's odd, we're going to assume that it's 1. And when it's even, we're going to assume that it's 2. Those are the only 2 that we're going to actually discuss or talk about. So if it's odd, we're going to just say 1. If it's even, we're just going to say 2. So let's finish this one, okay? So x equals -3. What you're going to do now is you're going to write f of x is equal to, and then you're going to start writing all your information that you know. Starting with a. A is -1. Done. Then you're going to make a parentheses for each of the x-intercepts. Each one of them will get its own parentheses. And then what you're going to put in there is each of the x-intercepts, but remember, you're going to put in the opposite. It's kind of like h. So instead of writing x -3, I'm going to write x plus 3. All of them must have x minus something or x plus something. For this one, I'm going to write x plus 1. And for this one, I'm going to write x minus 2. And once I'm done with that, I got to put the exponents up here on top. And the exponents that I have to choose from are either 1 or 2. I can only use 1s or 2s. So 1 if the graph crosses, 2 if the graph is tangent. Each one of these is crossing, right? So these are all 1s. 1, 1, 1. Which I didn't really need to write, right? It could just be x plus 3 times x plus 1 times x minus 2. There's your final answer. And that's exactly what we just did. If you guys look up here, that's exactly what this says. To find the equation of the graph, identify the x-intercepts, which we did. We plugged each one into its own parentheses like this with the sign change. That's what the minus means. We found the end behavior. Positive if the right side is up. See? Up, up, or down, up. Negative if the right side is down. We're going to do that again in number 2. Let's move to number 2.